Hello, and welcome to BizRun. This video is the 6th video in a series called Leave and Time Off Management, where we will give you an in-depth view of the module and instructions for use in BizRun. We encourage you to watch all the videos in order, then go back and rewatch and use as reference the videos that apply to your organization. In the last few videos, we introduced you to time off accruals, what they are, how they're used and applied to time off types, and a closer look at the rate, hours earned per hour worked, and the balance accrual types in BizRun. We also demonstrated and talked about some helpful information provided when running balance reports, information that can help you and your people make important decisions and better manage your leave and time off. In this particular video, we're going to focus on the last time off accrual type called adjustment. One way to think about the adjustment accrual type is to consider the analogy of your bank account. The deposits to or withdrawals from your bank account can be considered adjustments to your account. The same goes for adjustment entries to a person's personal info accrual tab. They are essentially deposits or withdrawals of time off on a specific date. Some examples or reasons why adjustment entries are made in some organizations are for comp days, giving or receiving time off between employees, and accounting for time borrowed. Actually, taking time off is technically considered an adjustment. To help you visualize this, let's take a look at examples of adjustments on a spreadsheet. The first row are column headings that list every single day in 2021. The second row in this case shows adjustment entries. And the last row shows the day-end calculated balances for every single day. Heather, in this example, started the year with a balance of 22 hours. On January 4th, she had an adjustment of 40 hours. So, at the end of that day, her calculated balance was 40 plus 22, or 62 hours. On January 5th, no adjustments were entered, and assuming she didn't accrue additional time off from rate or hours earned per hour worked entries, her day-end balance remained at 62 hours. On January 6th, she had an adjustment of -8 hours. So, at the end of the day, her calculated balance was 62 plus a -8, or 62 minus 8, which equates to a 54-hour day-end balance. So, the adjustment, whether the value is positive or negative, is added to the previous day's cumulative hours or balance in order to calculate the current day's day-end balance. If you recall, in the last video, we took a look at how the balance accrual type works. It's important to note that the difference between a balance entry and an adjustment entry is that balance entries overwrite the previous day's calculated balance, while an adjustment is simply added to the previous day's calculated balance. So, as mentioned before, adjustments are the perfect way to grant comp days or extra time off to employees, and on the flip side, account for any negative time off to a person's time off record. Note, multiple adjustments can be entered on any given day, and BizRun still adds all the adjustments to the previous day's balance in order to calculate the balance of the current day. For example, on April 5th, 2021, Heather has multiple adjustment entries. One for 10, another for 20, and a third adjustment entry for 23 hours. The first one could be from a manual entry, possibly as comp time. The other two could be from an automatic allotment of hours and a transfer of rollover hours from a different time off type. These are all capabilities of BizRun's Leave and Time Off Management module. For this particular case, Heather's day-end balance takes into account the sum of all the adjustment amounts on April 5th. We'll go through the specifics of this example in our next video. If your organization has a carryover or rollover policy, or allocates a consistent amount of time off hours annually to your people, BizRun can execute those policies and actually use the adjustment accrual type entries to make those calculations for balance happen flawlessly. If you need to review how to set up BizRun to execute policies for rollover and annual allotments of time, please go back and review the second video in this series about time off types. In the meantime, let's go through a couple more examples that'll show you how some of the accrual types can be used together in order to satisfy some typical PTO policies. Let's go back to Hilda's example. If you recall from one of our earlier videos on the rate hours per year accrual type, Hilda earned 80 hours per year of time off using the simple rate type. Since she started off with a 0 balance on January 1st, 2021, her day-end balance was 0.219. If we add an adjustment entry of 40 hours on that day, when we run the balance report, it shows that our day-end balance was updated to 40.219. In this case, the adjustment of 40 hours was added to her previous day's balance of 0, and also to Hilda's daily accrual of 0.219 hours, which equates to the 40.219 hours. Let's fast forward in time to April 5th and run a balance report for that day. The day-end balance is 60.822 hours of paid time off. Hilda has actually accrued a little over 20 hours and still hasn't taken any time off since the beginning of the year. If we add another adjustment of 40 hours on that day, and when we run the balance report again, it shows that her updated day-end balance as 100.822 hours. Again, the 40-hour adjustment is added to the day-end balance of 60.822, giving Hilda a new total of 100.822. So that's using adjustment and rate accrual types together to satisfy that flavor of PTO policy. Now let's demonstrate a more realistic example by still using adjustment and rate accrual types together, but now accounting for Hilda taking some time off. Let's go back to the week of April 5th and pretend that Hilda takes the entire week off. If we run the balance report for April 9th, her day-end balance is calculated to be 61.699 hours. To see what BizRun does behind the scenes, let's go to a spreadsheet to visualize how this balance was calculated. This row was added to show the hours of time off Hilda took per day. If we start on April 5th, you'll see that the 8 hours off was subtracted from the previous calculated balance of 100.822, resulting in a 92.822 day-end balance. On the 6th, she accrues another 0.219 hours, which is added to Monday's balance, but the 8 hours she took off is subtracted from that amount, resulting in an 85.041 day-end balance. The same thing happens on the next 3 days, and from the spreadsheet, you can see how BizRun calculated and came up with the result of 61.699 hours for Friday, April 9th. So this is what was meant by the earlier statement, taking time off is technically considered an adjustment. Time off is treated as a negative adjustment, but that's still added as part of the day's calculated balance. Note, time off entries are not actually entered as adjustments. Although they can be, they are best entered using the Request Time Off feature in BizRun. As the last example of this video, we're going to show you how the adjustment and hours earned per hour worked accrual types can be used together. Let's go back to Sean's example. If you recall from one of the earlier videos on the hours earned per hour worked accrual type, Sean earned the equivalent of 80 hours per year, then was increased to the equivalent of 120 hours per year of time off on January 20th, 2021. Assuming he works a typical 8 hours per day, 40 hours per week, or 2080 hours in the calendar year. Since his January 20th start of day balance was 3.696, calculated from the day before, after working an 8-hour shift and considering his effective accrual rate changed, his day end balance was calculated to be 4.16 hours. If we add an adjustment entry of 30 hours on that day, when we run the balance report, it shows that his day end balance was updated to 34.16. In this case, the adjustment of 30 hours was added to his previous day's balance of 3.696, and it was also added to Sean's earned accrual of 0.464 hours, and this equates to the 34.16 hours. Furthermore, let's pretend that Sean takes a few days off starting January 22nd to make a 5-day weekend. If we run the balance report for Tuesday, January 26th, his day-end balance is calculated to be 10.624 hours. To see what BizRun does behind the scenes, let's go to Sean's spreadsheet to visualize how this balance was calculated. This row was added to show adjustment entries per day. This row was added to show the hours of time off Sean took per day. If we start on January 20th, you'll see Sean's day-end balance of 34.16 hours. This includes the 30-hour adjustment and the 0.464 hours that he earned that day. On the 21st, he earned another 0.464 hours for working that day, so that was added to his previous day's balance, and his resulting calculated balance is 34.624 hours. On the 22nd, he took off that day, so the 8 hours was subtracted from the 34.624 hours, resulting in a 26.624 hour day-end balance. Notice, Sean did not earn time off that day, simply because he didn't work that day. The 23rd and the 24th was a weekend, so he didn't work those days either. Hence, his calculated balance remained the same as it was the day before. On Monday the 25th, he takes 8 hours off, again, not working that day. So, the 8 hours he took off is subtracted from the 26.624 hour balance, resulting in an 18.624 hour day-end balance. The same thing happens the next day, and from the spreadsheet, you can see how BizRun calculated and came up with the result of 10.624 hours for Tuesday, January 26th. So that's using the adjustment and hours earned per hour worked accrual types together, along with accounting for time off taken to satisfy that flavor of PTO policy. Hopefully by now you have gained an even better understanding of time off accruals, and not only specific details of each type currently available in BizRun, but also how they're used together to calculate time off balances in BizRun's leave and time off management module. Be sure to check out our next video in the Leave and Time Off Management instructional series, where we'll take a deeper dive into the Personal Info Time Off Accrual tab. We'll also go over what entries to expect when your annual rollover or allotment policy kicks in. Hope this helps. Thank you for watching.